My name is Mike Egan. I'm the chairman of the Abington Democratic Town Committee, and I'd like to thank you all for attending this morning to this event. A little history on the event. Many years ago, when I first became involved with the committee as a member, this was a big event. This was a very large event. The idea of the event was for local candidates to be able to have a platform to meet some of the constituents and to and get their message out. And the event got put aside at some point, and we were always looking for fundraising ideas, so we thought we'd try to get this going again. I think if we can build on what we have here today, which is actually a pretty good turnout. I'm pretty happy with the turnout we had today, and especially with the lineup of speakers we have today. So I didn't really prepare much of a speech, which is probably a good thing. So I'm just shooting from the hip here, but we really do appreciate your help, your support. It's important. It kills me when I go on Facebook and avenues such as that, and that I see a lot of complaining, but I don't see a lot of people coming to really meet the people that they could be getting their messages across to. So with that being said, I'm going to recognize in no particular order, it's just the way it was signed in, some of our elected officials and our candidates. I'll start with our two candidates that are here today. Bob Toomey is a candidate for selectman. If you could just stand, Bob, give a little wave. Where's Bob? Where is he? Is he here? There he is, right there. It's on the camera. You don't have to stand, Bob. You can stay right where you are. Rachel Collins is running for Park and Rec in town. We also have Leanne Adams, who is the town clerk, but she's also running for re-election as town clerk. So those are our local candidates here in town, and there's a few others, but they're not here, so unfortunately I can't remember them all. We also have our elected officials. Mr. Greg Hanley, our Plymouth County Commissioner. We have Mr. John Buckley, our Register of Deeds. Mr. Bob McCarthy is our Register of Probate. Jeff Welch is our Deputy County Treasurer. And Michael Paul is our Whitman Housing Authority. Thank you, Michael. Wonderful Senator John Keenan, our State Senator. Michael Cunningham is our Assessor, and he's also candidate for re-election. And we also, I want to recognize Tom Evans from the chairman of the Whitman Democratic Town Committee. With that, I do want to especially thank Suzanne Buck for coming here today on a short notice. We spoke the other day. Suzanne has a fundraiser coming up on April 23rd at JP Ryan's here in Abington, who was a big supporter of candidates. So make sure you attend that for Suzanne. She is a state auditor, and I think I will start with Suzanne in the speaking lineup. So if you could come up, a nice round of applause for Suzanne.
I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me, Mike, to join you here, and I want to start off by commending Greg Hanley. I want everybody to know that Greg just had a bowl of fruit.
My wife thanks you for that.
All right.
Now,
All right.
everyone's going to be watching.
Yeah. Well, I'm particularly conscious of what you ate versus what I ate, because often on the weekends I try to get to the gym. I'm not there all the time, as much as I would like to be. But the last time I was there was an inspirational quote up on the wall, and it said, "Commitment is an act, not just a word." And that's something that you in this room all know and live. You are committed Democrats. You believe in our party's values, but you don't just stop at believing. You are committed to action. You make the calls, you hold the signs, you do all of the work that's necessary to engage people in a public dialogue about what we want from our government, and you go out and you support the people that have your values. I recognize how important that is because it was critical to my being elected in 2000 10, and we all, and actually across the country, are benefiting from the fact that you did it again last year, and now we have United States Senator Elizabeth Warren rather than United States Senator Scott Brown. So like me, you believe in government, and you know, though, that some of our fellow residents don't. And whether you relate to either the Occupy movement or the Tea Party movement, you've got to recognize that they do have something in common, and that is that they've lost faith. They've lost faith in a lot of institutions, and that includes government. They're looking for accountability. And accountability in government is what has always motivated me. First as a state representative, then as Governor Patrick's labor secretary, and now as state auditor. I want people to believe in government, so I want government to do its job well. There's a definition of government that Barney Frank has used, and it's, unfortunately, it's not one of his most humorous or biting comments, so you're not going to get a laugh out of it. In one of his serious and insightful moments, he said that government is the name we give to the things we choose to do together. And that view of government really informs my role as your state auditor, because it speaks to the role of stewardship in the office of the state auditor. And I want to give you a couple of examples of what we're doing in the office that reflects this role of stewardship. The state budget is $35 billion. The state auditor's office is $17 million. And we have a responsibility to audit on a 3-year cycle 750 units of government across state agencies, local housing authorities, other authorities, and the like. And we really just use all kinds of computer capabilities to sift through bills that are being paid, employee payrolls, contracts that the state has to provide anything from road building to elder care services. We have a unit that is specifically dedicated, though, that doesn't just audit this program on a 3-year rotation, but all the time we're looking at the state's Medicaid program, because 30% of the state budget, 30% of that $35 billion goes to support the Medicaid program, Mass Health as it's known. 1 in 5 people now in the Commonwealth receives their access to health coverage through the Mass Health program. So when we're trying to figure out where should we be paying attention, well, that's a big program with a lot of moving parts. So that's why we pay constant attention to the Mass Health program. And we, as I said, sift through all the transactions, all the bills that get submitted by doctors and hospitals and dentists, and we find providers who are overcharging, or maybe they're billing for services that they never even provided. Or in some instances, we have found that there are, particularly dentists, we've spent a lot of time looking at dentists recently, dentists who are, in fact, subjecting little kids to unnecessary and excessive fluoride treatments and dental x-rays just so that they can drive up their bills, even though this overtreating exceeds the guidelines that are set by the American Academy of Dental Pediatrics. So, when you think about why would someone who's a lawyer and who's been involved in politics want to be the state auditor, it's because it's not just about the numbers. It's also about the people that rely on government services, and in this instance, it's about public health. Another way that we look at Medicaid, and you might recall a couple of months ago reading about the Medicaid program audit that we did, and found that the Medicaid bureaucracy was not properly verifying the income and the residency of the applicants. And so some people were getting on benefits who weren't entitled to them. And we are a very caring people in Massachusetts. We have, in fact, a generous Medicaid program. But we cannot afford to care for people who aren't eligible for services. And so that audit pointed out real failure on the part of the bureaucrats there to properly screen, and so they have taken action. They've gone from telling us when we were doing the audit, oh, we can't do all those things that you want us to do. It's just impossible for us to do it, to now reporting back to me a few months later saying, not only are we doing that, but we are now going to become the first state in the nation to integrate all kinds of other technologies and get all kinds of other information, including from the IRS, into our eligibility determination process. So this is how the auditor's office helps make government work better. And that's what really excites me about the opportunity to be in this office. There's one other thing that I want to mention to you that I know has been, that was in the news a week or so ago. Chris, when was this last week? Time goes by so fast. EEC. Okay, so Chris Thompson is with me from my office. He's my press secretary, so that's why I would look to him for a question about press. But it was hard actually to avoid hearing about the fact that we did an audit of the Department of Early Education and Care. And we found, much to our dismay, that this agency that's supposed to be keeping kids safe in daycare centers was failing to require daycare providers to do a check to see whether there were sex offenders who were either living in or working in the immediate vicinity of these daycare programs. Not because that means that the daycare program shouldn't be located there, but so that the daycare program could take proper protections, precautions to keep kids safe from someone who might be a sexual predator. Those kinds of findings in our audits, I know, can sometimes make people lose confidence in state government, but when you realize that what we're doing is highlighting a failure so that then that failure can be fixed by state government, then that means that we have people who really are caring about these concerns, putting themselves in the shoes of the taxpayers and also of folks who rely on government services, and it's a reason to instead have faith and confidence in our ability to rectify mistakes that may be made. It's probably just a sign of how boring I am getting as I age, but I am really excited about the work that we do in the auditor's office. And I want to just thank you for letting me be here to talk about how Democrats indeed can make government work better and how we share common values with everyone in our society. It's great to be here to share the day with elected officials that share those values, and with you folks as well, good Democrats who are committed to putting those values into action. So thank you very much for letting me join you this morning.
At this point, I just wanted to recognize a few of the committee members who happened to put the time in and effort into putting this together. Two who could not be here but did do a tremendous job providing all the food for us and getting us set up, because we really didn't have any idea of what we were doing. It was Alex and Lisa Benzanson, as well as committee members Paul Doyle, Dave LaRosa, Diane Bonafini, Rick Derry, Rick Collins, Kevin Whalen, Bob Toomey, Ellie Donovan, Ann Walters, and Jerry Walters. So thank you guys for helping us out here today. And Mike Wilkie, I'm sorry. Trying to write this all down as I was sitting there. Next up, I'd like to bring up our wonderful state senator, Mr. John Keenan. John has done, he's leading the battle to combat substance abuse on the South Shore. He's the chairman of the Public Health Committee, is overseeing the effort to reform oversight of compounded pharmacy. So John can elaborate on that, and he will, I'm sure, have a hell of a speech for us here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I guess just I wasn't going to talk about the compound, but it is a very timely topic. Many of you know that the lab out in Framingham has been in the news based on products that they produced. People across the country have died, and it's been a terrible tragedy. We have several bills before us in the Public Health Committee that deal with the compounding, and I'm pretty new to it. I don't know an awful lot about it, but what I do know is that nobody else seems to know an awful lot about it, which is quite disturbing. Compounding is the mixing of FDA-approved substances in different forms and then the marketing of those forms. It gets much more technical than that, but what's amazing is nobody seems to have a definition of compounding, at least not here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So what has happened is we have these labs that are springing up, these pharmacies that are springing up, and they are compounding drugs. They're compounding drugs that are not FDA approved. So some of the things that people use on a pretty regular basis are no longer approved by the federal government, by the Food and Drug Administration. For instance, somebody may go to an ophthalmologist and have some testing done, might have their pupils dilated. There's reversing drops that are used to undilate, whatever the phrase may be, your pupils. Used to be manufactured and approved by the FDA, no longer manufactured. So compounding facilities now make those drops, and they're not regulated either by the federal government or here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that's something that people put in their eyes. Never mind the substances that are converted from solid form to liquid form or put in through IV. So it's an unregulated industry, and we're going to do our best over the course of the next few months to come up with some legislation that addresses that. The other thing I just wanted to talk about quickly, because it seems to be in the news quite a bit, is what's going on at the State House with the budget. The governor submitted his budget, House 1. It's a budget that called for about $3 billion more in spending, about $1.9 billion more in revenue, with a focus on transportation and a focus on education. All great things. Lays out a blueprint for the future about what this Commonwealth can and should be relative to transportation, relative to education, and also some funding in some of the other lines in the budget. Pretty ambitious. Well, in response to that budget, the House and Senate has come out with a proposal of about $500 million that will focus primarily, solely on transportation. So we find ourselves at the State House in a little bit of a battle, which is unfortunate to see. We have Democrats battling Democrats truly in the spirit of doing what's best for the Commonwealth. There's no doubt about that. I find myself kind of in the middle here. There's a group of legislators who are adamantly opposed to new revenue. There's a group of legislators who don't think that $1.9 billion in new revenue is enough. And there's a group in the middle that's all ears. I find myself in that group, and I've made my position clear over the last couple of days that I will not support the governor's proposal. I will not ask people for $1.9 billion more in taxes while we spend $3 billion more. We're going to raise $1.9 billion and still draw on our stabilization account and still put revenue anticipation notes out there, spending $10 today and paying for them later. While we're asking for all that money, I think that's too much. But at the same time, I think the $500 million proposal that's been put out there by the House and Senate doesn't go far enough. It addresses basic transportation needs, which I think is critical. It avoids some of the longer-term vision projects, so to speak, of the governor, such as the South Coast Commuter Rail from Boston to New Bedford to Fall River, which I oppose at this time. It spends some money on regional transit authorities. It forward funds them. Right now, regional transit authorities incur expenses and then give the bill to the state and say, here's what we spent, much like the MBTA used to do years ago. So the idea would be to put them on a regular budget cycle. It also, the governor's plan and the House and Senate plan, takes employees off of the bonds, so to speak. We're paying for them with bonds. We pay them $1 today, and over the course of the next 20 years, it may cost us $1.50 for that dollar. So it takes them off the bond and puts them on our operating budget, which makes good sense. But I think we require more than that. We need to make sure that our red line and orange line trains are updated. We need to make sure that the green line expansion is completed. We need to make sure that we have the ability to maintain what we have in good form. And that will require all of that $500 million in the House and Senate plan. Beyond the transportation, I do think we need to invest in education. We need to invest in human services. Since 2001, if you look at the numbers, we really have seen pretty dramatic cuts in so many departments. And we're paying the price for it. About a month and a half, 2 months ago, we had to take a vote on $30 million for the Hinton Lab situation because there hadn't been sufficient funding, there hadn't been proper oversight, there hadn't been quality checks, there hadn't been the checks on employees. And yes, some of that is a direct result of individual oversight, but some of it is systemic and due to the fact that there wasn't enough funding in place to put the safeguards in place. So we have to invest in all that. What's the magic number? I don't know. We have to find the balance of moving the Commonwealth forward without overburdening the taxpayers. That's a challenge we face. I personally think, and this is pretty basic math, the governor's at $1.9 billion, the legislature's at $500 million. Some would say you split the difference. I think that's even a little too ambitious. But I think about $1 billion in new revenue will fund our infrastructure, put the expansion projects on the back burner until we know that we can afford those. It will replenish some of the accounts that we've decimated over the last several years in human services, in education. It will address those needs. And it will do so, I think, with finding the proper balance in tax base. And there is a whole host of items on a menu that we can look at to make sure that any revenue that we raise, any taxes that we raise, and people are afraid to say taxes, but any taxes that we raise are balanced, even, and spread fairly across the entire Commonwealth. Now, I'm optimistic. I know the governor has staked his ground, and I give him an enormous amount of credit for changing the debate. 2 years, the last 2 years, my first 2 years in the legislature, everybody who came through the office door was just asking for level funding. Can you just level fund my budget? I don't even need level services, which is slightly above. Please just level fund my budget. Well, this year, as a result of the governor's proposal, people coming through and saying, we've seen cut after cut after cut over the course of the past 4 and 5 years. And adjusted for inflation, we are so far behind where we were, we can't meet our mission. Can you please allocate some more funds? So that debate has changed, and that's a real positive, because we have to start looking at the future here. We've gotten over, I think, much of what's occurred over the last several years. Our economy's doing pretty well. So the debate has changed for the better. Now the challenge is finding that balance, and I'm convinced that the legislature and the governor working together, and I think that ultimately it will come down to that. I think both sides, and I hate to even use the term sides, but I think both the governor and the legislature will come together on a package that strikes the right balance and moves the Commonwealth forward. And they'll do it in the spirit of being Democrats, knowing that these are things that we have to do. And I look forward to being part of that. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions or comments on the budget, please give the office a call, make sure we hear them. We went out, we had a town meeting in Abington, Braintree, and Quincy. Not all that well attended, but the feedback was pretty good as far as where people want to go. I think people are willing to spend a little more out of their pockets to make sure, just as long as we make sure that it's spent wisely. And I'm sure the auditor will make sure we spend it wisely. So please give us a call if you have any questions or anything else. Again, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak today, for having me down here in the great town of Abington. I was fortunate enough to be down here several times over the last few weeks, and one of the highlights certainly was the football banquet that was held up the holiday, and what a great night. Kids doing a great job. It's a great town, and we're lucky that we have Abington, communities like Abington. We're lucky that we're part of this great state called the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you.
I also want to recognize two young gentlemen here who are going to be attending the State Democratic Convention for the first time this year as youth delegates. That would be Ed Toomey, Bobby's son Ed, and my son Matt Egan. So we appreciate the fact that they've shown an interest, and they really have. And it's for the first time since I've been chairman that we have youth delegates attending. So it just shows the good work of the committee, what it could do. Next up, we're going to bring up our Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, John Buckley, who actually has a fundraiser coming up as well on Sunday, April 28th. The pamphlets are on the tables, and that's at the Meadowbrook Restaurant in Hanson. So, we have a nice round of applause for our Registry of Deeds, John Buckley.
Good morning, everyone. Happy spring. I drove my daughter over to Brockton High School. Their band was going off to a concert, statewide concert. This morning around 6:30, it was 33 degrees. It's been a tough spring. But I want to thank the Democratic Town Committee for reorganizing this breakfast for many years. It was a tremendous opportunity for everyone to get together before town elections. And I know work goes into this to get it ready. And the food was great. The kitchen crew did a great job, as you would expect. And want to thank our senator in Plymouth County and Norfolk County, John Keenan. He's been a leader working with the county commissioners in getting some legislation filed to help the county provide more regional services. So thank you, John, for that. And I also want to just quickly comment on what a great job Suzanne Bump's doing, a fellow St. Bridget's graduate. When the state auditor makes sure government works better it's good for all of us. When a Democratic state auditor makes sure government's working for us, it really shows people what we can all do as Democrats. So thank you, Suzanne. And about 75 years ago, my grandfather started this town committee in Abington, in the days when there weren't a lot of Democrats in Abington and Plymouth County. He ran and won a state auditor in the 30s. That year, he lost the town of Abington. He lost Plymouth County. Thankfully, there were a lot of Democrats in Suffolk County. And the only good thing that year was he ran ahead of Franklin Roosevelt. And you know, Plymouth County hasn't gotten a lot easier, as we all know, with Democrats. It's not a simple thing to run as a Democrat in Plymouth County. We had a very strong year this year. Thank you for your help in my election. Things like the Whitman headquarters that Tommy Evans organized got us really going on a regional basis. And we elected Greg Hanley. He's doing a great job at the county commissioner. We were successful in winning a state rep seat down at Duxbury that had never gone Democratic in history, I don't believe. And people like Jimmy Cantwell and Terry Murray, who had Republican challenges, were successful. My only regret, I was at the State House the other day on a county bill, that I wasn't able to knock on the door of Representative Bob Toomey. But you know, things take time, and we will get there at some point. Since the election, I've been back at the registry working on our modernization efforts. As you know, our records go back to 1685, when the county was formed. There's a lot of talk about regional services now in the towns to save money. I just want to point out that the Registry of Deeds has been a regional service since 1685. And I know that a lot of communities are looking to try to do some modeling to do that kind of thing. All our records are available online. Our indexes are now back for public viewing back into the 1890s. We'll get back to 1685. We just got a grant to do a generator so that we'll never go out of power in Plymouth. We came through a very strong weather season that put a lot of places closed a lot of places because of electricity issues, and we'll be able to do that. We'll continue to do those kind of efforts. But things like this make a difference to us as candidates. They make a difference to us in our service. And I know there are people like Senator Keenan that didn't have an opponent this year. And I did have an opponent. And again, thank you for your work. And if any candidate ever tells you that they would rather have an election than go unopposed, they're not telling you the truth. But it does give you an opportunity to get out there with the community and talk to elected officials, local elected officials, activists across the county, and you do come back into office with a sharpened view of what you need to accomplish. So thank you all for your help. We look forward to working with you in the future, and congratulations on a good day today. Thanks.
At this time, before I introduce our next speaker, I do want to recognize a few of the local labor unions that have contributed to today's event. One being that of Local 103, my local union, which was the Electricians Union in Boston, and they've always been a big supporter of the town committee, and they've always been generous to help me out. As well as Local 369, which is Paul Doyle's local union, and they've also contributed, as well as the Whitman Democratic Town Committee, our sister local committee, that we really appreciate all the support from those three in particular, as well as everybody that came and sold tickets. Next, I'd like to bring up Plymouth County Register of Probate, if you would, and just maybe say a few short words here. I'm sure what's great about them is it's never hard to get a few words out of an elected official, that's for sure. And we're going to save the best elected official for last, I think.
Thank you very much, Mike. And congratulations to you and the Abington Committee for getting this event together again. And I also wear another hat in addition to being the Register of Probate, and that's as chairman of the East Bridgewater Democratic Town Committee. And we enjoyed working with you and the Whitman Committee in the Whitman headquarters last year in the election. And I think it pulled everybody together. John Walsh provided a great deal of help and advice to us, and I think we were able to make an input in what is a very tough district in a tough part of the state. And it's going to be important that we do that again this year when we finish with the Democratic primary. We all get together in the headquarters that are going to be located in Abington this year, in which, again, we need the same kind of effort that we were able to put forth 2 years ago, well, less than 2 years ago. As John Walsh said to us in January, well, you've had 60 days rest, now it's time to get up and get working again. So we are, and we'll have a good election effort come June. I believe June 25th is the final election for that Senate race, and that again is critical to our state. So I look forward to working with all of you in that effort. The East Bridgewater Committee, which I think was able to be more involved this past time, will hopefully again be doing that. I do want to bring some greetings from our Chair Emeritus, Sid Lyon, who is 86 years old, broke his leg in the last weekend of collecting signatures for the Senate candidates, and he's probably coming out of the Life Care Center in West Bridgewater over this weekend. And he has a close tie to Abington because he and an Abington resident were members of the class of 1949 at Harvard, and that's Father Tom Buckley, John's uncle, and who has visited Sid at the Life Care Center. So Sid is ready, getting ready to come out and get working in those final days leading up to that election. So again, Mike, congratulations, and thanks to all of you for being here, and we look forward to working with you.
Before you leave today, and you and I both, the subject of food always comes up before I guess we speak, but we have plenty of food left over, so we want to make sure that you're more than welcome to take home. We don't want it to go to waste. Anything unopened, we will probably donate to a local food pantry here in town. So please make sure you take home some of the food before you leave. Make for a nice little Sunday morning buffet. Our next speaker is newly elected Plymouth County Commissioner, Mr. Greg Hanley.
Thank you, Michael. Well, folks, I guess I'm the last speaker, so I don't know if you saved the best for last, but I will say that I'm very humbled to be on the same dais as the previous speakers. If you look at the quality of folks you have in this room, the dedicated public officials that day in and day out go to work for you and work on your behalf, I am very humbled to be here, and I want to thank everyone in the room who worked so hard to elect me as your Plymouth County Commissioner. It's been 100 days since we've taken office, and in those 100 days we've discovered that there is a lot more wrong with Plymouth County than I actually knew on the campaign trail. But having said that, we have gone to work very hard as a group of individuals who are able to cross the partisanship of politics and work together on your behalf to try to solve some of the problems that have plagued Plymouth County in the last 12 years. In particular, we find that there's an inequity in the distribution of money, and I don't want to bore you with the details, but I want to let you know that for the first time in the history of Plymouth County, you have 3 commissioners who have actually served in public office on the local level. We have Sandra Wright, who's out of Bridgewater, she's a counselor, and we have Dan Pilata, a retired selectman from Hanover, and I have sat in the capacity of city councilor in the city of Quincy and selectman in the town of Pembroke. So our approach has been to try to provide cities and towns with services that we historically see on the local level as always subject to funding. And we have filed a number of bills in the legislature to create revenue streams to help us create programming that at the end of the day will affect the bottom line of every city and town and the services they provide to their residents. The thought being, if we can regionalize some of these services, we can reduce the overall operating costs of your city and town. And if we're able to do that, you're able to either put that money into stabilization or reduce the tax rate. So we're trying to regionalize a lot of the things that we see in our experience on the local level on a regional basis, and we're very happy to be working on your behalf. Again, Mr. McCarthy had said that we all had a little bit of a break between the election and this Senate election. I do want to spend the balance of my time speaking as a surrogate for Stephen Lynch, candidate for Congress, and want to let you folks know that we have an Abington headquarters right in front of Abington High at the Old Town Real Estate Office, and we've been running our regional effort from there, and we welcome anyone who would like to come down and volunteer for us to be a part of the equation of solving the problem of this Senate race. All hands are on deck on this, and I would like to say that regardless of the outcome, regardless of the candidate, that we, everyone in this room, works together to get behind the candidate, whether it's Stephen Lynch or Ed Markey, because
this race is that important. It would erase the effort, the huge effort we gave to elect Senator Warren to turn around and give this election to the Republican. It would just defeat that effort. So the other candidate that I would like to stump for while I'm here, and he's a candidate who's earned his stripes, is Bob Toomey. Bob Toomey has worked very hard, and I was actually not happy with the results of his election, but I'll tell you what, Bobby, I don't think you could have done anything better than what you did. You left it all out in the field, and I think as a result of that, I think every resident of the town of Abington owes you this position as selectman. And I know your dedication, I know your drive, I know the personal sacrifice you made to try to make a difference. And I think for all of us, I don't think it's lost your efforts on being the person that you are. And I hope that the residents of the town say the same. So with that, I would like to thank you all for having me, Michael. And I especially want to thank the auditor for pointing out that Mrs. Hanley now has 36 spies to watch my diet, all right? So, true to form, I had my bowl of fruit, but I'll be down J.P. Ryan's later, folks. They told me Guinness is only 99 calories.
I certainly want to thank all of the elected officials that came. When you look around and you see what's going on and you see a lot of the fundraisers, which are especially difficult to do in small towns, because everybody's doing fundraisers. Everybody, you have baseball, soccer, football, everybody's trying to raise money, and you know, when you look at what you're paying taxes, it's always an issue. But people have been very generous as well. There's a lot of money unaccounted for that come out of folks' pocket, which I know having two sons, many times lots of checks and cash is just flown out of my pocket. It just happens. So it's good to have all of our elected officials that truly look out for us here in Abington. Next up, I want to bring up our local candidates, and I just want to point out that this breakfast, the meaning of this breakfast, the intention of this breakfast was always and will always be to allow local candidates in town, Republican or Democrat, it really doesn't matter. They run, Board of Selectmen run on a bipartisan, a nonpartisan platform. So we do want to give everybody an opportunity. So in the future, we are going to be hearing this on cable. We want to make sure anybody that decides to run for a local office, they're always welcome at our breakfast. They will always be welcome, and we're going to try to make a great effort to hold this year after year after year before town elections. So with that being said, we want to bring up our Leanne Adams, our town clerk, and David is the town clerk as well.
Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Leanne Adams, and I've lived in Abington for about 20 years. I have two daughters, Julia and Megan Kelly, and Megan is a sophomore at the high school, and Julia is a freshman at Keene State College. I've worked in the town clerk's office for over 8 years, and I started out as an assistant, part-time assistant in the office, and have recently been given the position of the interim town clerk. Mrs. Adams, Linda Adams, retired in November, and I've been running the office myself since then. Louder? Okay. So do I get to start all over? Basically, I would really appreciate your vote on the 27th. I love my job, and I'm very proud to be in the office that was run by two wonderful women that I adore very much, Mrs. McKenna and Linda Adams. So I would really appreciate your vote, and thank you very much for having me.
Again, the upcoming elections are, town elections are on April 27th, and the primary for Senate is on April 30th. Correct? 30th, yeah. Tuesday night, the 30th. Next, last but not least, our candidate for selectman that's here today is Bob Toomey. So Bob, you don't mind coming on up? He's also been working the camera for us.
Thank you very much for having me, and this is a great idea to restart this. When I first moved to Abington, I remember coming here, meeting John Buckley and John Walsh in particular, and Jim Howell in the kitchen, and thinking what a great idea it was to give a forum to local candidates to reach out to the voters. And I'm glad you restarted that, Mike, in the committee, because it does serve a great service. I also wanted to tell you, before I actually dealt with Ms. Bump, we were at an event about 6 months ago put on by Ed Miller in the Plymouth County Democratic League. And as a lot of you know, I'm involved with the Hug Foundation and the Coombs Foundation trying to raise money to help different causes. Well, we were at a situation where I showed up in not running gear, but certainly not an appropriate attire like this. And I tried to explain myself and told that we were at a fundraiser for the Coombs Foundation that particular day. They did the road race. Well, we've been working on trying to get transportation for a young woman and her daughter to go to Johns Hopkins in Maryland to get certain treatment that's not available here in Massachusetts. And I told them how we're going to put funds together to get a ride and hotel accommodations, etc. I didn't get off that podium 4 steps before Suzanne Bump had a donation of a coupon for a free rent-a-car for, I think, $200. Without me even asking, without being solicited, I didn't get 4 steps, and that check was right there for me. And that's the type of people we have running our state government. And I wanted to thank you personally. You'd never hear that from Suzanne. That's why I'm telling you, because you'll never hear it from her people. The wife of a soldier serving in Afghanistan at the time had to come in for a wedding certificate in order to do insurance and whatnot. So obviously this young lady has a lot in her mind when her husband's serving the country in Afghanistan. And it was excuse me, Leanne put the documents together for her. And in doing so, the woman said, how much is that, $20 or $15? Leanne said, no, the fact that your husband's serving the country here and you're at home helping us out is pay enough. And again, she would never tell you that because that's just something that she feels is a moral obligation that she did. And I want to thank you personally because we do have to thank the servicemen, and particularly the servicewomen, the women of servicemen who are here, and also the husbands of servicewomen. Now, on my behalf, I'm running for selectman of the town of Abington, as all of you here know. I just ran for state representative, and I did not do as well as I'd like. But the numbers I did receive were, for the most part, on behalf of the people like you, the Whitman Town Committee, Bob McCarthy, and the East Bridgewater Town Committee. All the people that pulled together to help me and my family out in that quest for the state rep seat. As I said, we didn't win, but we formed bonds and friendships that will never die. And again, the support you gave my family in particular is just overwhelming. And that's why I try to invest in my kids and tell them to help out candidates like Greg Hanley and Bob McCarthy and Leanne Adams, because it's what you give that comes back tenfold. And I've always tried to teach the kids, it's good karma, that you can't complain and whine about things if you don't take an active role. So it's very important. Mike mentioned that my son and Matt are going to the next state convention. We have another generation of youth coming up. Maeve Riley and Maeve Brophy and Ricky Collins. I mean, this is the next generation. We have to get our people elected now in all local positions, state positions, and federal positions in order to secure a better foothold and a better stronghold for our family and our descendants. I've always liked to think that I'm trying to improve the quality of life for my family as my father improved the quality of life for his family and prior to that. So what we do as a group is, not necessarily as Democrats, but as working men and women, can only improve the quality of life for Abington, Whitman, East Bridgewater, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and ideally on June 30th for the country. I'm not going to go into further state, national politics, but I happen to know Steve Lynch personally. I grew up with him in South Boston. He's a hardworking guy. I happen to know Ed Markey. He's a hardworking guy too. So no matter who wins our Democratic primary, we have to be together April 30th and support our candidate. The Republicans have a most formidable candidate and an Abington resident, Mike Sullivan. He's well-liked, he's respected, he has some history, so we have to bond and work together because our odds are he's going to be our opponent, and we have to unite as one. No matter who the candidate is, work hard and do what's best for the local town elections, the state elections, and most importantly, the national elections. Any support you can give us, again, I hate to ask for support all the time, but I try to give it back. Please help us. April 27th are the town elections in Abington, and April 30th are the state elections for the primary, so please take an active role, as all of you here. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because everyone here is most active, but reach out to your neighbors, reach out to your friends, your cousins, your relatives, anybody, and get them to vote. In our case, April 27th, and more importantly, April 30th. Thank you very much for all your time and all you do.
If you're not used to being in front of a microphone, I actually happen to have a business which I do have to speak a lot at, so it took me a long time to get comfortable, and it's very difficult for people to do. It's very intimidating, and I'm sure a lot of the politicians know that from when they first started out. But we have one more candidate who's running for Park and Rec, and she's the wife of one of our members, Rachel Collins. We'd like to bring her up. She's going to have a few words to say, and we should end our program after that. So come on up, Rachel. Have a nice round of applause, Rachel.
Okay, my name is Rachel Collins, and I am running as a write-in candidate for the Parks and Recreation Commission. I actually started off my college career as a recreation major, and life has taken me different places, but my husband and I bought a house here in Abington about 4 years ago, and one of the reasons we looked into Abington was because we saw the community spirit here, and since we've been here almost 4 years, I can definitely say there's a lot of community spirit, and we're blown away at all the events in town, and look forward to hopefully being a part of that in a bigger way. I do believe that Parks and Recreation is a vital part of any community, especially here in Abington. Having quality programs and activities for people of all ages, as young as little Ricky over here, all the way up through our senior citizens who are very active in this town. I'd also like the Parks and Recreation Board to be, the commission to be more of a clearinghouse for all the recreation communities and activities that are going on in town. It seems as it's kind of hard to figure out as a newcomer where things are and what things are, so I'd like to kind of, as part of my mission, kind of strategic planning with that. And also work with parents, other departments, local businesses to support the efforts of the town. So I look forward to hopefully serving you on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and again, I am a write-in candidate, so if you can help spread the word, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck to all of you in the upcoming election, the local candidates, the ones here as well as the ones not here. Steve Lynch, Ed Markey, we both support them. And I mean, anytime anybody who takes that step to run for any office should really be commended, because it's just that much more than your average resident. So we'd like to thank them all. April 10th, for those of you, I think many of us here are probably registered to vote, but for those that may be watching on cable, April 10th is the deadline to register to vote for this election. With that, again, I'd like to thank all of you for attending today. We hope to see you all again next year. On behalf of the Abington Democratic Town Committee, thank you very much, everybody.